Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Rural Rapport. My name is Teresa Hoffman. I'm a Senior Communications Associate here at the Center for Rural Affairs. On this episode, my guest and I will be talking about efforts by local leaders who are working together to address water quality and flooding concerns in Iowa through entities known as Watershed Management Authorities. We'll also discuss the opportunity for state lawmakers and decision makers to support these important entities. My guest today is Sara Carmichael. She's a watershed coordinator for Story County and also a member of the Headwaters of the South Skunk Watershed Management Authority. Thanks for joining me today, Sara.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Sara, for those who don't know about you, tell us about yourself and your background in this area.
Sure. So I've been with the county for about 1.5 years now as the watershed coordinator. The position was created a 1.5 years ago because they were able to do a countywide watershed assessment to identify ways the county can be proactive in reducing flooding, addressing landowner concerns, and helping the state reach the nutrient reduction goals. So my background is in environmental education. I have over a decade of experience in watershed issues and water quality, specifically related to drinking water. And before this position, before I started almost 2 years ago, I was the director of a nonprofit that focused on river restoration and securing more state funding for river health.
Well, Watershed Management Authorities, also known as WMAs, were established in 2010 by the Iowa legislature. To date, these entities have implemented more than 2,600 conservation practices, from wetlands, edge of field practices, grassed waterways. Most of these projects were conducted alongside voluntary landowners. Others, like flood control and stormwater efforts, were implemented alongside cities, towns, and public entities. What is a watershed and what is a watershed management authority?
Great questions to kind of get the base, make sure everyone's on the same page. So basically what a watershed is just an area of land where all of the water, whether it's underground or on the surface, it all drains to a specific point or the same location. Watersheds are determined by the topography of the land. So hills or mountains separate different watersheds. And the size of a watershed is also based on the geography. So it can range from like a small lake all the way up to the Mississippi River. And so everything that we do on the land, wherever we live or work or drive, is impacting our waterways. The smallest unit of watersheds, they're usually 7,000 to 14,000 acres. And that's all determined and named by our federal government, the USGS. So they kind of take on the responsibility of identifying the watersheds, where the water is draining to, what water body it's draining to, and then naming that watershed based on the drainage and the land. So like I mentioned, we all live in a watershed, and watershed management authorities are very Iowa specific. Usually states have some way to implement best management practices, like you said, whether it's wetlands or edge of field or grass waterways. There's some entity that kind of helps secure those projects on the ground. And the Iowa Department of Natural Resources are the entity for Iowa to oversee these watershed management authorities. So it's a mechanism for entities in the public sector, so that's cities, counties, soil and water conservation districts. All of these people come together and work towards a common goal within the WMA. There's other entities involved, other stakeholders that can engage in watershed planning and management, but the WMA is formed when those at least two entities come together and sign a legal agreement, a 28E agreement. So not everyone is required to join the WMA, not every city or county or STD, but they must be invited. And what I really want to stress is that the word authority within a watershed management authority has very little power. There is no authority when it comes to WMAs. The WMA cannot tax, cannot acquire land, but what it does give power to is groups of individuals, groups, cities, counties coming together, appointing a board of directors and working to assess and reduce flood risks, assess and improve water quality, monitor federal flood planning and activities, educate their residents, educate their landowners, and then work towards securing funding for best management practices. So it's a great way and a great opportunity for people in Iowa that want to pool resources together, whether it's people or funding, and work toward the goal of reducing flooding, improving our water, improving our soil.
Well, that's great information to have for people who really don't quite know what a WMA is, but also shows the importance and maybe why it's important to Iowa residents. So there's more than 300 cities, counties, and soil, water, and conservation districts across the state who belong to at least one of the state's 27 WMAs. You're involved with the Headwaters of the South Skunk WMA. Tell us about that group. How did it come to be and what is happening now?
Sure. So we're one of the newest WMAs, the Headwaters of the South Skunk. The members include the cities of Ames, Jewell, Randall, Roland, and Story City. And then the counties and soil and water conservation districts involved include Hamilton and Story. Those are the main partners that are affected by what happens in the headwaters of the South Skunk. We have a little land that touches Boone and Hardin, but it's such a small amount of land that they decided not to participate in the WMA. So the WMA formed around 2018. But then we weren't able to work on the plan until like 2021. So we have the cities, the counties, and the soil and water conservation districts, but there's also a large technical team group that involves myself, other conservation members, involves people from the Iowa DNR, IDALS, Iowa State Extension, county environmental health. It also includes people with co-ops or nonprofits, and then ag businesses. So we tried to make sure everyone that would be interested in working to protect our soil and water, anybody that was interested that we made sure to invite them and that they could participate in forming this WMA and creating the plan on how we move forward. So we were able to secure funding from the Iowa DNR to hire a consulting firm, JEO, who helped get all of the ideas on paper and wrote the final report. They also did a lot of data analysis and helped us come up with our goals to move the plan forward. So last December, the WMA adopted the plan, and it includes short-term, which are 5-year goals, and then long-term, which are 20-year goals. Also includes an action plan for those goals, an education plan, and then a sustainability and funding plan. So it's very robust. The plan can be found online, which we'll link to at the end. But the three main goals of the plan include maintaining full technical and political support, improving water quality to enhance quality of life and improve recreational opportunities, and then broadly affect water quality improvements by increasing individual and community involvement. So very broad goals, but it does, in the plan, it does go down to more specific measurable goals that we were able to identify. So since the plan was adopted, we're now in the phase of educating everybody about the plan. So we were able to hold a couple open houses for the public, but I kind of have taken on the responsibility of touring the watershed, the WMA, and presenting the plan to all of the entities that I mentioned earlier. So we did an educational tour, and now we're kind of trying to figure out the next steps and the best path forward for the group. So we still meet. It's basically every other month, and they're public meetings. So if anybody is interested, they can attend the meeting virtually or in person. And that's for any WMA. So they're able to voice their concerns or their opinions on what the group should be focused on. But now we're trying to figure out what the next steps are regarding our 5-year plan and our 20-year plan. So there's a lot to do, but there's a lot of momentum with this group. There's a lot of interested parties. We have some champion farmers and some champion landowners, and the cities are very interested in urban work. And then we also have an ag focus as well. So lots of support, and it's just a matter of figuring out the next steps.
That sounds like a great example of the cooperation and working together, entities all working together that we mentioned in the opening. Sounds like you have a great example that you can share across the state of how your entities, all these folks, are coming together to work on these issues for Iowa.
Yes.
In 2022 and 2023, the Center for Rural Affairs conducted 2 surveys of Iowa's WMAs to assess their effectiveness and current standing. Results showed successful track records, local roots, and demand for projects. Despite these successes, WMAs face an uncertain future due to lack of stable funding, particularly for positions like Sara's as a watershed coordinator. Since the start of 2022, the number of WMAs with full-time coordinators has shrunk from 13 to 7, and we are expecting that number to be even lower by the end of the year. Sara, share what your role is as a watershed coordinator.
Sure. So one of the main roles of a coordinator is to coordinate things. So whether that's WMA members, whether that's working with the public, working to achieve the goals identified in the plan. That's kind of what one of the main roles is for a WMA coordinator. So I'm a little bit different than a typical watershed coordinator because I work for the county. I work for Story County, and I don't work for the WMA. So I'm funded by the county, not by the WMA, but there's a lot of support from Story County to make sure whatever's happening north of us in Hamilton, we work together to make that positive impact for our water and soil. So I'm heavily involved with the WMA, and it's really important to have one main person that organizes everything and coordinates things, does education and outreach, and that's what the watershed coordinator is for. It's responsibility to talk with landowners and educate them and work with partners, whether it's the local NRCS office or the local town, working with stormwater management, trying to reduce flooding, that's, coming down. So there's a lot of responsibility, but it's all to make a positive impact.
So if funding is not available for a local coordinator, who is going to do that work?
That's kind of the ultimate question that we're trying to, figure out as a state, and as local WMAs. Right now, what's really interesting in the conservation world is that there's a lot of money for conservation practices. So a lot of money statewide, federal, even local. There's a lot of money to put the practices in, but there's not enough funding for people to get the work done. And it's really hard for landowners or cities and towns to kind of navigate some of that, and what conservation practices are out there. So that's kind of what a coordinator helps with, the technical part, or at least reaching out and knowing who to contact if the coordinator doesn't know something technical. So unless there's a champion in the WMA, the work is, the goals in the plan are it's going to be hard to get those done. And WMA members, like the elected officials, the cities, the counties, the SWCDs, those members are usually have full-time jobs and usually aren't the expert in the conservation world. So they have really good interest, and there's, they want to do something, and that's why they're part of the WMA. But without that coordinator, and without that funding, then WMAs and the work that they do is not going to go very far.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential impact without these coordinators. So how would that impact Iowans?
Yeah, so, it's, if we're able to secure funding for coordinators, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of those members and off of the WMAs, and it's going to help Iowans get those conservation practices in the ground. It's just, WMA coordinators provide another resource and another opportunity for Iowans to work on doing the right thing and work on, keeping the soil on their land, reducing runoff in their cities and towns, protecting the water that drains from the WMA downstream. So Iowans, I know, want to do the right thing, and WMA coordinators and WMAs in general are helping achieve those goals, and really helping achieve Iowa achieve the nutrient reduction goals that have been identified for the past 10 years. So WMAs and the coordinators that need the secure funding are really important. And also, when landowners or farmers are talking to somebody, it takes a while to build up a relationship and to build up that trust. So if we have WMA coordinators and they only have secure funding for a year, that's not going to get a lot done. These projects take multi-year, and that trust and that relationship building takes multiple years. So being able to have secure funding just will help everybody and will help all Iowans and all WMA members.
Well, as I said earlier, Iowa lawmakers do have an opportunity to kind of help these important entities. And they are beginning to put together the state budget and considering an $800,000 investment in staff. Staff at the center has been working to inform these lawmakers of the need. but they need to hear from you, their constituents, about why you think water quality, flood mitigation, and staff for WMAs are important. You can check out CFRA.org/advocate to learn more about how to get involved. You can find that link as well as ones to our Iowa Watershed Resource Library and report on Iowa's WMAs, including additional results from our survey in the comment section below. Thank you, Sara, for joining me to talk about this very important issue to Iowa. And thank you all for joining us today for the Rural Rapport. If you'd like to learn more about the center, visit our website at cfra.org. Thanks and have a great day.